Welcome to another edition of the Giants Huddle podcast brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants. I'm here in the Hackensack Marina Hill podcast studio. Keep getting better. And we're joined by a friend of the program. He joins us every year around this time. He is Joel Corry, former NFL agent, does a great job covering everything free agency, contracts, economics of the NFL for CBS. Joel, what's going on, man? How are you?
Doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for being with us always. Giants in an interesting spot here. So I guess let's start with their housekeeping first. There are reports out there that they're going to let go of Bobby Okereke to free up some cap space. They have a bunch of other veterans they can do the same with. But if they do want to be really more aggressive and spend, if John Harbaugh really wants to remake this team in his image, they're going to have to do some more work on guys that will remain on the roster with some big contracts. When you look at this from your perspective, who are some of the guys that you think are the easy moves to restructure, convert some base salary to signing bonus to free up some extra space?
Well, the first guy that screams out is Brian Burns. He's got a $36.55 million cap hit. He's got $25.5 million in cash. It depends on whether they want to add void years or just do the conversion through the existing years. So let's say you converted everything but his 24.05 million base salary, leaving league minimum of 1.3 million. You're converting 22.75 million. Now, if you don't want to add void years, you pick up a little more than 15 million. If you want to add void years, you can get 18 too. That's just whether they want to do that or not. Then you got another another defensive lineman, I should say. You can look at in Dexter Lawrence. He's under contract for 2 years. So you would probably want to add void years if you're going to do him. If you don't add any void years, you're going to pick up 8.6 million in cap space because you'd be converting 17.2 million of his $18.5 million base salary. If you added three voiding years, stretch out the proration over 5 years, and you're getting 13.76 million. Now, going to the offensive line, Andrew Thomas would make sense. He's got a cap hit a little over 24 million. He's under contract for, I think, 4 years. So if you don't add void years, then you're going to create, I think, 12.1 million. So you can get there and have enough cap room to maneuver in free agency if you want to. I know Baltimore used to restructure a ton of contracts. Harbaugh wasn't the cap guy there, obviously. And Donna Ponte's come from league office, and she's been in Miami, among other places, as someone who's managed the cap. If you really want to make a splash in free agency, you will have the ability to do so.
Would you think about touching some of those contracts on defense that you signed last year? Most of them were 3-year deals, or do you think that gets a little bit dicey in terms of redoing some of those?
Yeah, that's a little harder to do. Although you did a minor restructure of Paulson Adebo during the season for a 3-year deal, you'd have to add void years just because you are only under contract through 2027. I would go to those three before I go to anybody else.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. You mentioned Donna Ponte real quickly as an aside. Have you had much experience with her? What have you heard from her from your
No,
contacts
I
and
really
agents around the
didn't.
league?
I didn't have a chance to deal with her much, but she's got a reputation for being a tough negotiator.
All right, interesting. We'll have to see how that goes this year as she works with Joe Shane and John Harbaugh up in the Giants front office. All right, so if you figure out a way, and then there are obviously some
Interestingly,
veterans on.
she reports to Harbaugh,
Yep.
so that's interesting.
So when you take a look at some of the veterans that they have, and that you can create some more space that way, give me a 20,000 foot view of this free agency class, Joel. And it could change now between now and when this airs. Jawan Taylor, for example, just got informed by the Chiefs that he's going to let go. So more guys could enter the pool, admittedly. But what's your 20,000 foot view of this free agency class?
Well, with every free agency class, it's the B list. And I say that because the guys that you really want to keep get contract extensions.
Of course.
You do have a unique situation this year with Linderbaum being free. You typically don't see an offensive lineman of his caliber on the open market. And that's just a quirk in how the system works. His fifth-year option wasn't picked up in Baltimore, not because of ability, but because the cost was going to be the franchise tag number for offensive lineman last year, since he went to two Pro Bowls in his first 3 years. And the offensive lineman tag number doesn't differentiate between guards, centers, and tackles. It's primarily made up of left tackles. So with 23.4 million, that had no relation to the center market. The highest paid center is Creed Humphrey at 18 million. So you got him on the open market, and a guy like that should never hit the open market. He will reset the center market. Eric DaCosta already came out and said he's offered him a market-setting deal. Now, I don't know if that means he offered him 18.125 million, 18.5, but I don't see any universe where there's a Tyler Linderbaum deal done where the first digit isn't a 2.
No, I agree with you, and I think there'll be a lot of like if you go to some of these team, reporters that cover these teams, everyone seems to have them on the top of their target list because everyone needs offensive linemen. So yeah, I think the market's going to be.
That's how you get a crazy number.
Yep.
If he's got 3-4 suitors out there, and the agent can play them off against each other, and you've got a team like the Chargers that cut their center, and their ties to the Ravens, because their general manager came from Baltimore, they'll overpay him. They got cap room. The Commanders just got rid of their center. The Bears had their young 27-year-old center, Drew Dahlman, retire yesterday, which was surprising. So this could line up for him getting a crazy number. The Titans cut their center, and they've got a ton of cap room. The Raiders have a ton of cap room. He could get some number where when it's all said and done, people are thinking about it in the same way they did Milton Williams' deal last year. Milton Williams went from a rotational defensive lineman to one of the five highest paid interior defensive linemen, $26 million a year. I'm not saying that Linderbaum's going to get $26 million a year, but he's going to put some distance between himself and Creed Humphrey at $18 million per year.
Yeah, I'm with you on that 100%. And by the way, folks, just for the record, obviously the Giants don't confirm with salaries of players or everything, but this is public data that we're working off of. And in terms of free agency next week, not connecting these players to these teams today. There will be free agents. We'll talk about what could happen in the future. So, Joel, let's talk about what the Giants have and the questions they have to figure out. We'll start on the offensive line because you went there with Linderbaum. Jermaine Illuminor is a free agent. And when I call this offensive tackle free agent class shallow, I'm talking like kiddie pool shallow, like maybe you're ankle deep if you want to like put your feet in. So I got to imagine there's going to be some pretty high demand for anybody that could be a starting quality offensive tackle that's a free agent this offseason.
Yeah, the most intriguing one is not quite free, but maybe free. He's really long in the tooth, but Trent Williams is scheduled to make like $33 million for the 49ers. He said late last year he's going to play at least this year. If they can't work out a deal to reduce his cap number, if he's on the open market, although he's older, he jumps to the top of the list, because I'd rather have 2 years of Trent Williams than 4 years of anybody else who's available. I'd be curious to see where that one goes. Matt Nagy is now with you guys. If I'm John Harbaugh, after seeing Juwan Taylor being a penalty waiting to happen, if he brings him up to me, I'd tell him to turn around and walk out of my office.
Nah.
And Taylor went to the Chiefs on a $20 million per year deal back when right tackles making $20 million per year was abnormal. He played better in 2025, but man, the penalties, whew. And that's a problem he had if you're a right tackle, although he did a very good job in not allowing pressure. So if I'm a right tackle in the open market, and I think I'm one of the ones that's in high demand, the Titus Howard deal, which just got done for his trade, which takes effect on the first day of the league year next Wednesday, from Houston to Cleveland at 21 million per year becomes an important data point for me. Whether you can get up to that level can be a different story. On the other side of the tackle, the left tackle, you got Rasheed Walker, the best young tackle out there. Dan Moore, who's not very good, got 20.5 million per year from the Titans last year. So I'm looking for more than that if I'm Walker.
If you want to know how to manage 2 minutes of crunch time football, I'm your man. But if you're wondering about a long-term financial plan, you should talk to Citizens. Hey, I can also talk lawn care.
I'd like to learn about a mowing routine.
Yes, I knew I could help. Make sense of your money with Citizens.
So what do you think the Giants are going to have to budget here for a Luminor? I know last year Jalen Moore, for example, went from a backup and he got signed.
Yeah,
for 2
he was
years,
a swing
$30
tackle.
million deal, which is
15 million per year for a swing tackle to be a
I got
backup.
to imagine when like Jermaine Luminor
more than that. If I'm a Luminor, I'm thinking, hey, this guy was a swing tackle. He's at 15 million per year. I'm trying to get over 20. If I can't, I got to at least be where Moore is.
And there's a lot of money in free agency too, right, Joel? I think that's an important thing to note here. There are a number of teams that have to spend a certain amount of dollars to reach the free agency, to reach their cap floor in terms of required spending. So, and like there always is, like there's just not a lot of offensive tackles out there. So, look, from my perspective, I think given if they lose a Luminor, I don't know what the Giants' answer would be. Maybe they do like Marcus Bowe enough to just slide him in there and start him. I think that would be the logical conclusion you would reach if they don't re-sign him. But
that's where my nightmare starts to come into play. Well, we lose him. Matt Nagy's like, I know Taylor. I wouldn't want him.
But that's my point, right? There's just not a lot of options if a Luminor walks out the door, right?
Braden Smith, who's a little older, might be at a smaller price point. Could be an option. But yeah, you want to get your guy. Because the tackle market is not someplace you really want to be in the second wave of free agency. And these guys could benefit from that reason. And one thing you always realize about free agency, that the 2 days of negotiation period and the first day or two of free agency, actual free agency, is really a seller's market. Then it flips to a buyer's market. If you can afford to sit out the first wave of free agency, then you can get a guy who overpriced himself and get him for more your value than his value. And something you did mention briefly, the spending requirements, that from 2024 to 2026, over the 3-year period, each team has to spend 90% of the salary cap in cash. So there's some teams like Seattle is one that's going to have to spend money to reach the minimum threshold. We've never had a team fall under the threshold, but you could literally spend no money in 2024, no money in 2025, and then spend like a drunken sailor in 2026. And as long as over the 3-year period, you hit that mark, you're okay. The Raiders are going to be a team that's going to have to spend money as well. And they've got a ton of cap room.
And they, by the way, have a huge needed offensive line too, by the way.
Yeah, they need like an entire offensive line besides Colton Miller at left tackle.
What do you think of two offensive linemen I'm going to throw at you? Because I think they interest me a little bit. Because I always want to try to find these guys that are coming off their rookie deals, right? What do you think the interest will be in two guys? Dylan Parham from the Raiders, who started a bunch of games for them coming off a rookie deal, and then Jamari Salyer out of the Chargers, who I think are two of the rare guys that are in this group, at least, that are coming off a rookie deal and have started and at least been okay as starters in the NFL.
Salyer's interesting because there was 1 year I think he filled in for Slater at left tackle. And I think he played better at left tackle that year than any other year, but he can play multiple line positions. He's going to be more of a utility lineman. Parham, they're probably going to be priced in the same way. You're probably not going to have to pay any more than $6-7 million per year at most for them.
Yeah, and I think that could be a fallback position if you get to the point where you need to do something. Anybody else out on the offensive line, guard or tackle, Joel, that you think maybe is being undervalued? You think you can kind of bring in and they can be a solid starter for you if you need one?
Now, here's one that intrigues me. Elijah Vera Tucker with the Jets for one reason. It's not ability with him, it's availability. He missed the entire 2025 season with a torn left triceps. In 5 seasons, he's played 43 of a possible 85 regular season games. He might be someone that, if the durability concerns are problematic, he's on a 1 year prove it deal for like 8 to 10 million. He's going to be looking for the multi-year deal, but I would be a little leery of that because he hadn't stayed healthy.
No, I'm with you, but I think just in terms of quality of play, he's probably the best guy out there. But
yeah, if he could stay healthy, he would be probably a $20 million per year guy.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. All right, let's jump to wide receiver here. We'll see what happens with Alec Pierce. I think there's a chance he might figure something long-term out with the Colts before he hits free agency. At this point, though, maybe not. Could that go into like franchise tag to even maybe starts with a 3 range when it comes to Alec Pierce here?
He would need multiple suitors to get a deal that starts with a 3. I'd be targeting 30 million per year, knowing that it may end up at 25, depends on the number of suitors. The Colts want him back. He's unique from the standpoint that if you look at his stat line, if you compared it to stat lines in the 70s, it's one of those because he's averaging 21, 22 yards a reception.
It's like Lynn Swan.
Yeah, or like Cliff Branch type stats. That he's leading the league in yards per catch in each of the past 2 years. So he's an ultimate deep threat. So he's going to be north of probably between 25 and 30 million per year, but I'd be asking for 30 if I represented him.
And then you kind of get into the next tier, and there's a bunch of guys, I think, in this wide receiver tier when you look at it. The Romeo Doubs, obviously the Giants with Wan'Dale Robinson, Juwan Jennings, Deebo Samuel. They're kind of Rashid Shaheed maybe is going to be in this category, Joel. Where do you think those guys are going to land and what that market's going to be like in a year where the draft is pretty thick in wide receivers? So how do you think that's going to look once you get past Pierce and you get into that next tier of wideouts?
Now, your guy is interesting because he had a career year, like 92 catches, 1,100 receiving yards. If I'm him, there was a deal done in December, which caught my attention. Jacoby Myers signing with the Jaguars, 60 million over 3 years. I'd be trying to get something along that line. Shaheed says he wants to stay in Seattle. I don't know how much they can pay him because their plan is to take care of their 2023 first round picks, Jackson Smith and Jigba, the reigning offensive player of the year, who says he wants to be the highest paid receiver in the NFL. And he's got a case for that. And Devin Witherspoon at corner. You're already paying Cooper Kupp $15 million per year. So unless Rashid wants to take a little discount, he's probably elsewhere. Now, familiarity brings comfort. He came from New Orleans in a trade midseason. His offensive coordinator last year in 2024 was Clint Kubiak. His offensive coordinator, once he got traded, was Clint Kubiak. The Raiders head coach is Clint Kubiak. So the Raiders have enough cap space to make him change his mind about, I want to stay in Seattle because money typically talks for a player that hasn't made significant NFL money. He was undrafted, so he fits that bill. And if the Raiders are coming after him, they may overpay him.
And the Raiders certainly, and they need weapons at wide receiver too. They have Brock Bowers, but after that, they have no one at wide receiver.
Right, and I'm not touching Deebo. I know he was relatively healthy last year with the Commanders, but he had that one phenomenal year that got him paid. I think it was in 2021. He hasn't come close to that. And he's like 31 years old. I'm staying away from him. One guy that
Dobbs and Jennings are the other two.
Yeah, they're probably about the same place, the $15-17 million per year mark. Jennings is interesting because he made a tactical mistake to me. He was a restricted free agent in 2024. Instead of playing on the second round tender, he did an extension where he gave up a 2025 contract year, and it would have worked out well for him if he had just played on his RFA tender, because Brandon Ayuk gets hurt. Debo wasn't healthy. They drafted Ricky Pearsall in the first round. He had the unfortunate gunshot wound in preseason, which really derailed his rookie year. And Jennings almost had 1,000 yards. So he would have gotten paid last year. He's still going to be all right, but his payday got delayed. There's one more guy I want to bring up at receiver. An older guy, interesting. We'll see if he'll leave. Mike Evans. Up until this year, he had 1,000 yards every year. It was the record for the most consecutive 1,000-yard seasons to start a career. Now, 2 years ago, he took a discount to stay in Tampa because the deal was reported at $52 million over 2 years. That was a max value. The base value was $41 million. So Tampa re-signed Chris Godwin, who was coming off an injury last year. They drafted a receiver in the first round. They had him in the second round the year before. They say they want him back. He's really more of a luxury than a necessity in Tampa. But I'm curious to see what he does with Robinson. I'd look for the Titans to be big players for him as long as Brian Daboll likes him, because that's where he's offensive coordinator now. And they got a ton of cap room and need receivers.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's where it's going to land. A couple of guys further down the list that I think maybe could be good values at the price. I think this was 3 years ago now. Maybe it was 2 years ago. Christian Kirk got that contract that everyone kind of raised their eyebrows at. They're like, wow, Christian Kirk, that much money? Could this be a deal coming off a down year now that you might be able to get him on a little bit more of a bargain?
Oh, yeah. I don't think you have to go to 10 for him.
All right, I'm with you on that. And how about Jalen Nailor out of Minnesota, a guy that maybe is talented but hasn't got much of an opportunity there because of Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison being there?
Yeah, you're projecting that he's going to. You're paying him for what you expect him to do, not what he's done. Presumably, he would be graduating to a second receiver role as opposed to being the third receiver. I'm trying to do a 2-year deal with him, get into double digits if I can, and then hope that he blossoms, and then you really hit the market after that. But I'm going to plug somebody for his development that his receivers coach, Keenan McCardell in Minnesota, was a client of mine.
All right, let's go to – I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joel.
No, just saying – his development, I'm attributing to my old client, Keenan McCardell, who was a great receiver in his own right, had over 800 catches, 11,000 receiving yards in his career, primarily more so with the Jaguars than anyone else.
No, absolutely.
So I'm just plugging Keenan.
Really, really good receivers coach, Keenan McCardell, no question about it. Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I jumped on you at the end of your statement there. All right, let's jump over to corner. Another position, in my opinion, at least, and correct me if you think I'm off base on this, maybe not quite as shallow as offensive tackle, but it is not overflowing with really good cornerbacks in this free agency class. You got a couple at the top that are okay. And the Giants have a corner that played really well last year in Cordell Flott. He's young, which teams love, especially at cornerback. You don't want to sign 30-year-old corners, right? What do you think the Giants' situation is going to be, what they're going to look at with Flott, how pricey he might get, and if they lose him, what some of their options might be?
Here's one thing I don't know about Harbaugh and Flott. He's slight. It's like 175, 180 pounds. Harbaugh typically is like bigger corners from a weight standpoint. He may not be for Harbaugh, but let's say, for sake of argument, let's say he is. Then you're going north of Christian Fulton, who didn't get on the field much for Kansas City last year. And that was $10 million per year, 2-year deal, $15 million guaranteed. You might have to go to 15. The guy that intrigues me more than anybody else is Reek Woolen. Reek Woolen physically has everything you want. 6'4", like 200 pounds, freakishly fast. Got off to a terrible start at the beginning of the year, bounced back, but still makes some boneheaded mistakes. Made a great play, which you thought got the Rams off the field. The Seahawks off the field. Then gets a taunting penalty. Very next play, gives up the touchdown to Puka Nacua. That very well could have cost the Seahawks the NFC Championship game. someone, and he was a Pro Bowler his first year.
Yep.
Someone's going to pay him because of that size and speed. 6'4" corners don't grow on trees. But that
Beyond
being
him,
said,
anyone else in this class that you think could be had that could be good bang for the buck?
I'm curious to see what happens with Nahshon Wright, because that's a guy that had done nothing until this year and then led all cornerbacks in takeaways, in fumbles and interceptions. He's also a taller corner, but he also was a little boomer bust. But that type of size, I'd be a little scared of him because this year is kind of an outlier. But he may try to price himself out of the market. He wants to stay in Chicago, but they're already paying Jalen Johnson, and they paid other, I think, Gordon as well. So how much money they have? He might be looking for north of $15 million per year. I wouldn't go there. But one more guy that intrigues me is Jamel Dean. Dean took a massive pay cut and then had a great year. He's a little older. He's 29. So he's at an age where you're like, when's he going to hit the wall? But he's probably going to be looking in that market of where guys ended up last year, like Charvarius Ward, Byron Murphy the second, or junior. I forget which one. There's one that's junior, one's the second. In that $18 million range, like Carlton Davis was last year. That's probably where he's going to be looking.
Huddle up, get in here. If you're lined up here, you gotta go over the middle with it to score.
Right. How do we make that happen?
I don't know, but Citizens does.
Make sense of your money with Citizens, official bank of Eli Manning.
One name I've heard people are big fans of is Alante Taylor. What are your thoughts on him?
If I'm him, I'm looking at what my former Saints teammate got, which you guys have, Paulson Adebo, and I'm targeting a deal like that, which is $18 million per year.
That may make sense.
I don't think he gets there, but that's what I'd be targeting.
And you think he kind of lands more in that like $13 to $15 million range, you think?
Yeah, he might be in more of the $15 million per year range.
Okay, I think that makes sense. Giants Huddle Podcast brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants. From game day celebrations to your everyday financial needs, Big Blue fans get the most out of every moment with Citizens. Learn more at citizensbank.com/Giants. Linebacker, Joel, it's somebody that it's a position that the Giants now have pretty much no one under contract that has started a lot of games for them, except for Darius Musow. So it's actually a position where I think there is some depth in free agency. You actually have some players that I think are pretty good at the top here, and it's a position that often teams do eschew paying, and they let guys hit free agency. So I think there could be some opportunities here, and John Harbaugh has shown the penchant for valuing that position and either trading for a player there, drafting a player high, or spending on a player there.
Yeah, I think the guy who's going to benefit the most of everything is Devin Lloyd. His fifth-year option wasn't picked up because it was basically $15 million, and he goes out and becomes a second-team All-Pro. He's probably going to be looking in that Zach Bond range or above. There's one guy who's on the trading block, Tremaine Edmonds for the Bears. He signed a deal in free agency that had to be 2022 then. It was $72 million over 4 years, which was at the time the biggest average, still is the biggest average that anyone's gotten switching teams in free agency as a linebacker. Last year, you saw a couple of guys re-sign with their own teams, and Jamie and Sherwood and Nick Bolton at $15 million per year. I'm not sure anybody else gets to $15 million per year, but you got guys like Quay Walker from the Packers. Fifth-year option wasn't picked up. The Browns would like to keep Devin Lloyd. You've got a couple of older linebackers, which
Devin Bush with the Browns, you mean?
Yeah, Devin Bush. Yeah,
yes,
Devin Bush. You got a couple older linebackers that I don't think would have any interest in coming to the Giants if they were interested. Well, three of them in particular. They're all 35 or above. Bobby Wagner, Demario Davis, and Levante David. They all made around $9 million on short-term deals last year.
How about Anzalone?
Yeah, he's interesting. He has had some injury concerns in the past. They paid Derek Barnes his money, I'm presuming, in Detroit because Jack Campbell is eligible for a contract extension, that's a whole another story. we don't have to get into, but he's probably looking north of 10 million. He's someone that would be intriguing. Caden Ellis is another guy because he's got some ability to rush the passer, but plays off ball linebacker. He might be 10 to 12 million. So you do have some options there. Leo Chenal, that may be one because Matt Nagy knows him. He's the third linebacker in Kansas City. He might be he should be under 10, but he's been productive for the time he's been on the field.
Oh, if he's under 10, I think that's something you can think about. Again, I don't think he's a green dot guy, right? He's more of kind of a strong side, weak side guy, correct?
Right. And the reason I say under 10 is Ernest Jones last year came in at 9.5 million per year. Ernest Jones, second team All Pro this year.
No, I think that makes sense. All right, two more positions I want to hit with you, Joel, here. There's been a lot of noise that the Giants could be in on trying to upgrade the running back position. We'll see whether that's noise or if that's real. I know Kenneth Walker's at the top of this group. What do you think of the depth of it? Anybody from this running back group that you think either could be really good value at the top or maybe in the middle where you're like, all right, this is a good value for a running back. You bring him in, he can be a good solid starter for you and help the team.
Well, Kenneth Walker, the third, must be doing cartwheels because the Jets put a franchise tag on Breece Hall and he didn't get one. So he should be the clear-cut number one back out there. He's probably going to be looking to be 12, 13, 14 million per year. Whether he gets it, I don't know. Travis Etienne is up. He didn't get a fifth-year option in Jacksonville. Running backs typically haven't fared all that well in free agency. So there's going to be someone who doesn't get paid. Rico Dowdle last year had 1,000, in 2024, I should say, had over 1,000 yards in Dallas. He could only get $3 million to go to Carolina. He doesn't want to be in a timeshare of Chuba Hubbard. So he could be out there. A guy that I would imagine wants out of Atlanta that was 1,000-yard back as a rookie is Tyler Algier. And he kind of fits what Harbaugh wants, that big bruising thumper back. He probably ain't going to be that expensive. Maybe 5, 6, 7 million per year max. That's someone I'd be looking at. And for a dual threat guy, Kenneth Gainwell played really well in Pittsburgh last year. He's going to be pretty affordable because he hasn't made any real NFL money. You might be able to get him for $5 million.
Yeah, I think that's a good breakdown. There are reports that the Giants could consider moving in a trade Kayvon Thibodeaux. The Giants obviously have not commented on that. I'm not lending validity to those reports, but if they do, edge could be a spot that they look at, Joel. And I think it's actually a fairly deep edge class if you want to try to find somebody, even like halfway down your list in the middle that can give you some part-time snaps.
Yeah, well, trading Thibodeaux makes sense only if you can get good value from a draft pick standpoint.
I agree.
And you don't have to trade him now. You don't have to trade him before the season starts. You have until early November at the trade deadline, but you probably have to get something for him sooner rather than later. Otherwise, you're looking at a compensatory pick at best in 2028. And someone might be willing, maybe not today, tomorrow, but sometime before, a contending team might be looking to add him as a piece. But since you have Abdul Carter and Brian Burns, then he's more of a luxury than a necessity.
So what do you think of the free agent class on the edge?
Yeah, well, it's not – the guys that intrigue me the most, you won't be going after, like your Jalen Phillips of the world. I'm curious to see where that one ends up. But here's another guy that intrigues me. I hadn't done much the past 2 years, but maybe you're looking for a third edge rusher, Reddick. Because at one time he was extremely productive, had that mind-boggling holdout, which kind of derailed his career and then couldn't get it back on track in Tampa. But I can't imagine at this point in time he's going to be expensive. He's a guy from the East Coast, so he might be someone you look at as a third guy once you have Thibodeaux out the way.
What do you
if
think
you
the
have an
older
athletic.
guys, and this might not be for the Giants, I'm just interested from an NFL perspective. A guy like Trey Hendrickson, who went through that whole, drama-filled process with the Bengals last year, through really no fault of his own. Coming off an injury-plagued year, but 2 years ago, he was like runner-up defensive player of the year. And then Mack and Bosa, two other guys that are still productive, but obviously they're well over 30.
Bosa played for 12 on a one this year. Probably not going to do much more than that. Mack is older than Bosa. He's like, what, 34,
35,
35?
I think,
Yeah,
yeah.
35 now. I think he played for 18 on a one. He wants to keep playing. He might want to go. Well, the Chargers are a playoff team, but if he may stay put there for something close to that. Von Miller's still trying to play. I think he made like 7 on a one for the Commanders. And who was the other guy you mentioned?
Hendrickson.
Hendrickson. Yeah, Hendrickson. Yeah, he's the most interesting one because he had like 35 sacks over 2 years and then finally gets hurt. They paid him 29 on a modified one. He's probably going to want to get in the 30s on a short-term deal. I might give him the benefit of the doubt that he would bounce back from the injury, but I'm not signing him for more than 2-3 years. And I'm not guaranteeing.
So you think his
I'm
number
not
might start with a
guaranteeing
3, huh?
That's what he's going to be looking for. It might be in the 2s, but I try to do a deal where there's no guaranteed money, fully guaranteed money in 2027, or if there is guaranteed money in 2027, it's injury only at signing, then becomes fully guaranteed on the 3rd or 5th day of the league year.
All right, and then if the Giants want a third safety, maybe they want to go like the Cooper DeJean route, right, and have their slot player be like a big safety, big nickel type of guy. Anybody in the middle of that safety class this year? I think there are a lot of safeties that are free agents. Nick Cross is out there. The Giants have their own guy, Dane Belton, Reed Blankenship, who obviously from the Eagles they're very familiar with, Kyle Duggar. What do you think of like the middle of this safety class that fans should keep an eye on if the Giants want to add somebody there?
Familiarity brings comfort. Gilman from the Ravens might be someone to look at.
Yeah, and
just because Harbaugh knows him.
Yeah, he went to the Bills
might be your
last
first target.
No, I think that makes sense. All right, last two before we say goodbye, Corey. Anybody else, Joel? Anybody else that the Giants should keep an eye on that maybe could be a cap casualty between now and the start of the league year around the league that could be of intrigue, and maybe potential trade candidates that teams have maybe in some cap trouble and need to get some money off their books?
Well, you guys got to get a kicker since Gano is probably going to be a cap casualty. So I'm not sure where you go for a kicker. And I can't imagine you go with someone that Harbaugh knows just because there's too much baggage. Although he used to be extremely accurate in Justin Tucker, didn't get to find a job last year. So I'm curious to see what happens with him. The quarterback situation is going to be interesting because you have multiple guys who are probably going to get released. Cousins, we know, is out. Kyler Murray's getting cut. He's got $39 million fully guaranteed. You've got Tua, who has $54 million guaranteed. He's probably going to get cut. And Geno Smith has 18.5 fully guaranteed. Somebody's going to end up in Minnesota for next to nothing. And all these guys except Tua, because Brian Flores is the DC in Minnesota, should be trying to make a beeline to thinking I should have no problem beating out J.J. McCarthy.
Joel, you're awesome, man. Tell the folks where they can find all your great work.
Okay, you can find me on Twitter that's Corry Joel, CORRYJOEL, and also I write a regular column for CBSSports.com called Agent Stake on NFL salary cap and contract matters. This week I have a piece I filed earlier today, which is on target prices for 10 intriguing offensive players. Some of these guys we went over in our session, and then Friday is going to be on 10 defensive players.
Fans, go check it out. It's always must read. You learn a lot. And by the way, your Twitter name, I think, is you put that together just to really confuse people because you have two first names as it is. So your Twitter name is Corry Joel, but you're Joel Corry. So I think you're trying to get people to swap the names.
I'll give you the backdrop behind that. I don't have common names. But I signed up for Twitter maybe 13, 14 years ago. So I tried to get it first name, last name, and I couldn't. Then I found out pandemic year, there's this British electronic dance music DJ who has my same name that does really well apparently on the electronic dance music charts. So that's why I couldn't get it the way I wanted it. So I just flipped it the other way around because I was thinking, this is odd. How come this isn't available? But hey, now I found out why.
You should send him a DM. You can go to one of his shows. You guys can have a great time. It'll be awesome.
Now, what I did during the pandemic was I would send a text to some high school friends and tell them I have a new hobby. And I would send a YouTube link to one of his songs. And some of my friends were like, okay, you're screwing with us. And then they saw the name, like, that is not you. And a couple of my friends were like, I didn't know you had a hidden talent. And then I was like, no, it's not me.
Oh, I love it. All right, man. Always good to talk to you. Joel,
Likewise.
have a great one, and we'll talk soon, all right?
Sounds good. Thanks.
Joe Corry, former agent, CBS. Check out his work. That's the Giants Huddle podcast, brought to you by Citizens, official bank of the Giants, from the Hackensack Marine Hill podcast studio. Keep getting better. We will see you next time, everybody.